So, one of the things that I did not expect when I started doing, abuse resources and research and interacting with victims of abuse, like I didn't start off any of this to be some kind of abuse content creator. It was 14 years ago, and I was getting ready to have my first son, and I wanted to stop the cycle of abuse in my own family. And so I wanted a place to put the information and resources I was finding. And through that process, started to end up interacting with a lot of other victims of abuse. And weirdly, my paralegal training came in handy. In essence, I was starting to be like a lawyer for the victim, not in a way that I am showing up to their arguments with the abuser and saying on behalf of the victim XYZ, but more so that kind of advocacy and argumentation on behalf of the victim, giving it to the victim so that they could, if only in their own mind, defend themselves against what the abuser is saying, and to sort of anchor themselves in reality and also what is reasonable and fair. So, again, paralegal, non attorney, I don't represent people. It was a metaphor. So, I what I discovered was one of the core pattern for many abusers is they love bomb the victim or obligate the victim into signing the relationship contract and then weaponize that contract against the victim and saying like you have to do something or you're not allowed to do something or you're never allowed to leave. The abuser will not recognize your right to end the relationship. They believe that both parties have to agree and they will present it that way to the victim. Oh, we're in a relationship and this is how a relationship works. And you can't listen to them. They're unreliable narrators. And it's entirely self-serving. But it's hard to see because they will reframe relationship needs and obligations as ones that are serving them. So they'll say it's they're relationship oriented, but really it's always about what's for them, never what's for you. And they'll call you selfish for trying to assert yourself as a person and a human being. So let's say you're dating this person and they love bomb the bananas out of you. Like you haven't even gotten to the we're a girlfriend, boyfriend, or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. You haven't gotten to the stage where you're like in a relationship dynamic and you certainly are not engaged or married. The dating stage is for vetting. It's to decide if you are compatible. Because once you're in a relationship, you are now compromising, right? That's one of those relationship rules abusers will weaponize against a victim. Well, you should compromise. But somehow the compromise, it's only the victim ever compromising. It's not actually a compromise. The abuser is setting themselves up as the arbiter of what is right in a relationship, how relationships work. And the victim, because they've maybe never encountered this kind of person or they're not well read on relationships or they're just giving this person the benefit of the doubt, they are influenced by this abusive person, unreliable narrator, into believing and misbelieving what the abuser says is true, and it's not. So you're suddenly in a dynamic where nothing you think is accurate and as far as the other person is concerned and your interpretation of how relationships work, it doesn't matter. And everything that you think is wrong and you are now in a position where you're having to explain yourself to this other person and justify yourself to this other person as if you are the person who's in a position who has to prove yourself, not them. Meanwhile, they're the one making these claims about how relationships work. Well, prove it, my guy or lady. So if you get love bombed or if you get guilted into signing the relationship contract, then you've been rushed out of the vetting stage and now you're in the stage where they can start to weaponize things against you. Whereas in the dating phase, if they say, well, you have to do blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, no, I don't. I don't even know you. We're not together. we just went on some dates. So their attempts to leverage control don't have the same amount of credibility to them. But if they can rush you through the dating stage into committing in some way, once you've committed, well, now they're going to stand on the relationship to coerce you or to abuse you into doing what they want. They're going to stand on love to coerce you into abusing you into doing whatever they want to. They are going to make claims about what things are or are not. And if you leave, you're giving up on us, or whatever stupid other emotional manipulation they're going to engage in, logical manipulation they'll engage in, rules lawyering you into oblivion. And especially if you're married to this kind of person, it has even more force behind it because of what marriage can be between people. So whenever you read relationship resources, they're always the presumption is always that you're dealing with two reasonable people who recognize everyone gets to be a person. That is a fundamental presupposition that abusers do not have. And so they're going to misrepresent the relationship. They're going to misrepresent marriage. They're going to misrepresent it to you. And for some reason, you're supposed to take them as the arbiter of reality on relationships and whatever, how things should be. You can always tell you're being manipulated when someone doesn't accept your no, keeps pushing, keeps trying to make you think something else. Like a normal person, maybe you don't agree. And you say, oh, okay, I see what you're saying here. I don't agree. But okay, you don't have to align on reality. You can have a difference of opinion. And honestly, on a side note, I feel like I'm seeing this with our country too. Like we're not existing in a place where people can have different opinions. It's like everyone has to agree on the same thing, which is not how I grew up. But anyway, so in a relationship, it's only safe to compromise if you are both deeply compatible. There can be no compromise if the compromises are all one-sided, unilateral, or not safe for one person. You get to be a person. You are not tied in a relationship to this other person. You have not signed a contract with the devil that you can never leave. Anyone who's acting like that, not a person who has your best interest in mind. If you are in a relationship with someone who's trying to rules lawyer at you, who does not allow you, a grown person, to think things, decide things, take your time, you're not dealing with someone who is a safe person. Also, the further in you get in a relationship dynamic with this person, the more mistakes you're going to make, because that's just this life. None of us are perfect. We're going to do something dumb, maybe say something dumb. They're going to take every single incident of that and use it against you and bring it up every single time and use it to convict you over and over again. You could have murdered someone and been in and out of jail sooner than this person will ever let you forget anything wrong you've ever done. And so they collect every little thing, and then they bring it up every single time to shame you into doing what they want. Hold on, there was another thing I wanted to mention. Well, anyway, so you have to get to a point where you're recognizing this person isn't giving you the benefit of the doubt, and they're also putting themselves in a position above you because they're the ones that are saying, you prove it to me. I'm the one setting the standard. You have to come to my standard. No, grown people here. So I do want to make a very important caveat, however. As you are further entangled with this person, you're going to share resources in common, and especially if you're married, and you have property or you have children in common. One of the permutations I see the victims end up dealing with is an abuser who is being intrinsically deeply selfish. And when you're saying, hey, this needs to occur because we have to take care of this space that we share, or there are kids involved, and then they're going to maybe call you selfish or controlling or something. But legitimately, you may have ground to stand on to say, no, it's not okay for you to do X, Y, Z. I'm not being controlling by saying we did this thing together. We both have obligations toward each other. And this is where I think a lot of the trickier parts of abusive dynamics can happen, because people are arguing over, well, who's controlling, what's reasonable, what's appropriate. And so it's very situation and context dependent, in my opinion, depending on what specifically you're dealing with. So, for example, well, no, I hesitate to even do that. Context dependent, let's just say that. So, there can be situations where you are, on behalf of, let's say, a minor child you share, saying something to this other person about what they should or should not be doing that isn't unreasonable because of the mutual obligations you have to this child. I've kind of gone over this in more detail in another video. It's the one on entitlement. So if you look for that one, that's where I go more in depth on this. But at the end of the day, once we realize there's a fundamental incompatibility and irreconcilable differences, that the relationship should end, all you need is one person who's decided I no longer want to do this. Both people do not have to agree to end a relationship. The only thing that both people are required to do is to either be actively engaged in parenting children or providing resources for that to occur. And usually that's going to be worked out through a court. You have a third party arbiter, a judge, legislation that kind of goes through and sees what's appropriate in the situation. I'm not going to say that every single time it works out the way that it should, but generally speaking, that's a better process than, trying to have a slap fight it out with the abuser directly. They have no problem using anything you believe in and to beat you over the head with. So anyway, I hope this makes sense. The love bombing is bait. It's to trick you into signing a relationship contract. And the further you get into the relationship, the more they have to use against you and to coerce you into agreeing with them. Oh, that was the thing I wanted to mention. Manipulation. You know how you're being manipulated. If the other person is not accepting your no and they keep pushing, they want you to do something you don't think, feel, or believe. So it's not only about what you're doing, it's about how you think, how you feel, and how you believe. We're all human beings. We get to think and feel things. I do things many times that I don't want to do or agree with. When we pay our taxes, maybe we don't agree with that, but we do it, right? So you can do a thing and not agree. Abusers want you to believe what they want you to believe. They want you to feel what they want you to feel. They want you to do what they want you to do. And so you don't get that space to do something even though you're not about it. And so that's one way they really show, okay, because so much of the conflict is, am I abusive? Are they abusive? What's happening here? The person who wants to control who you are on a fundamental soul level, what you think, feel, and believe, that's often who's the abuser. Anyway, I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.